Hey, what's up, people? Piz out here, and today I've got a review of the latest Scream Factory Blu-ray release. This is the collector's edition of Prison, starring Viggo Mortensen, directed by Renny Harlin. And Prison is the story of vengeance from beyond the grave, as Wyoming State Penitentiary is reopened after many, many years of being closed down, and it is dilapidated and basically in ruin. So we're talking about some pretty severe budget cuts in Wyoming that's causing the prison to be reopened and populated with a whole slew of inmates, only to discover that a vengeful spirit is very much alive and wreaking havoc inside the old prison. And Prison has a pretty colorful history, which they go very much in depth on the retrospective on the Blu-ray. Originally, it was intended to be what Irwin Yablans, who produced the original Halloween, he wanted to make Halloween in prison. Yeah, so that was the impetus for this movie, Halloween in Prison. And it was produced by Empire Pictures, which was Charles Band's old company back in the 80s. And it was actually, I think, the last Empire release. It was a relatively high budget for an Empire release, and the movie looks fantastic, which, I mean, I think is a testament to Renny Harlin being very, stylistic. Even though this was his first American film. But I mean, I think you can see the fact that, he went on to, he later directed after this Nightmare on Elm Street 4, he went on to do Cliffhanger and Die Hard 2 and a whole slew of, glossy, big budget Hollywood action fare. And the movie looks fantastic. There's a lot of really bloody special effects. Most of them are done pretty well. Some of them look really, really hokey. A lot of the rotoscoping of, like, lightning coming out and stuff like that looks pretty good. There's a lot of like dummy stand-ins for people who are being dispatched in very bloody ways that look pretty, like I said, look pretty hokey. But overall, not that bad. The movie is actually pretty well written, I have to say. There's a lot of inmates. They don't try to shed any sort of, these are prison inmates. They're not great people, but several of the prison inmates have their own sort of backstory, and they're given some character. They're given something to sink their teeth into. Not a whole lot, but definitely a lot more character than you would expect to see in just your average horror film. So I definitely appreciated that. Like I said, the movie looks really great. The Blu-ray, the picture quality, the audio quality, superb. As usual with all of Scream Factory's releases, it sounds beautiful. But I mean, aside from that, it's just very beautifully lit and shot. And again, didn't see a lot of that in a lot of 80s horror movies, so definitely, kudos for that. The acting is pretty good all around, I have to say. There's actually, and they talk about this on the retrospective, this is a very in-depth retrospective documentary on this Blu-ray, I have to say. Of all the Scream Factory releases, this is probably the most in-depth retrospective on any of the discs. I mean, you've got the director, you've got actors, you've got, producer, you've got, Kane Hodder, you've got John Carl Buechler on there with his, it's like a commercial for Just for Men beard coloring with him. He's got like super white hair and like super heavy dark, colored beard, which is just almost frightening. When I first saw it, I was like, whoa. But one of the cast members actually in the movie was an actual felon. Quite a few of the background characters in this movie were actual felons that were brought in from the local state pen because it was cheaper to pay, well, they didn't pay them at all, so they bust them in. Before action and after cut, they were in shackles. They were escorted by armed guards. Between action and cut, they acted in the film, and actually one of the major characters in the film was a convicted felon who just happened to have a SAG card, so they gave him an actual speaking role, and he actually does a pretty good job in the movie. It's funny, Irwin Yablans on was it Renny? It was either Renny Harlin or Irwin Yablans. I think it was Irwin Yablans. Said that after the movie was done, that the guy would call him all the time on the phone and from the prison and be like, "Hey, can you get me some more work? Can you, can you put me in another movie?" And he eventually gave up after I think he got a lot of. Yeah, those calls were going nowhere, needless to say. There's a funny part on the retrospective where Irwin Yablans is talking about, how they sort of, how all the armed guards were on the set to make sure that no one disappeared, and then it cuts to Renny Harlin and he goes, "One day Irwin Yablans' wife disappeared." And yeah, she had just wandered off on the set amidst all these felons, I think looking for like craft services or something. So there was a panic, and then they finally tracked her down. But I thought that was funny. That cracked me up. He talked to Kane Hodder about his experience on the movie, being the stunt coordinator and doing a lot of the stunts in the movie, which was pretty interesting. Incredibly in-depth stuff on this retrospective. Very, very cool stuff. If you're a fan of this movie, you're definitely going to want to check that retrospective out. Very, very much in detail. They go into a lot of detail about, the torrid sort of, after the movie was released. Of course, Empire went bankrupt, and it really only had, I think it might have had 1 or 2 distributors on VHS, and then it was just mired in this, just web of copyright red tape that kept it from any kind of official DVD or Blu-ray release up until now. So that was pretty interesting to hear about. But the movie overall is just really fun. It's actually quite a good movie. I mean, it's better than I think one would expect, considering that it is a low-budget 80s horror movie. But as I said, it's got a little bit more meat on the bone as far as the story is concerned and characters are concerned. The acting, as I said, is pretty strong. Viggo Mortensen gives sort of I think he's definitely trying to channel some James Dean in his performance. But yeah, overall, just a really fun, cool, guys kind of. It's a guy movie, and it's a lot of fun. I hadn't seen the movie until I purchased this Blu-ray, and I'm definitely glad that I did, because not only is it a really good movie, it's got really great special features on it. Like I said, that retrospective, Hard Time: The Making of Prison, incredibly in-depth retrospective. Definitely cool. Haven't watched it with audio commentary with director Renny Harlin, but I'm sure that's pretty cool too. The cover art, of course, as usual with all of Scream Factory's releases, are awesome. And as with all of Scream Factory's releases, we get the reversible sleeve that's got the original prison cover art there on it. So that is very cool. Yeah, definitely another, I think, must-buy from Scream Factory. Again, they just keep rolling out just top-notch Blu-ray releases, and Prison is no exception. This is a really good movie with a really good Blu-ray release that you should definitely run out and purchase. So definitely, I highly recommend it. Really good movie. Enjoyed it from beginning to end. Really enjoyed the retrospective, the making of. Aside from that, we have poster and still gallery. We've got the original first draft screenplay in PDF format, and that's really it. But like I said, the retrospective documentary is very in-depth, very lengthy, and yeah, that definitely makes this Blu-ray. So yeah, highly recommend it. Good movie, good Blu-ray. I'll end it on that. Until next time, you guys take it easy, and peace.